Rebellion is the right of the people. Education creates a difference between people. No one can be forced to be rich or healthy against their will. I've always pondered the actions of people who talk too easily about what's on their mind. The sooner you start treating your son like a man, the sooner he will become one. True courage is expressed in calm self-control and in the imperturbable performance of one's duty, in spite of any disasters and dangers. The well-being of the whole people depends on the proper upbringing of children. Men are convinced of the weakness of women, and they themselves are their slaves. Man's happiness or unhappiness is mostly the work of his own hands. It is easier for a mentor to command than to teach. No one can be forced to be rich or healthy against their will. The educator must have a good knowledge of the world, knowledge of the customs, mores, quirks, tricks and shortcomings of his time, especially the country in which he lives. He must be able to show them to his pupil. Must teach him to understand people, to tear off the masks imposed on them by profession and pretense, to distinguish what is genuine, which lies deep under such an appearance. That he must accustom his pupil to make for himself, as far as possible, the correct judgment of people on the basis of those signs that best show what they really are, and penetrate their gaze into their inner being, which is often found in trifles, especially when these people are not in a formal setting and not on the alert. Tell a man passionately in love that his beloved is deceiving him, present him with 20 witnesses to his beloved's infidelity, and you can bet 10 to 1 that a few kind words from her will refute all the evidence of the accusers. Nothing penetrates so imperceptibly and deeply into a person's soul as an example. No matter what bad trait people overlook in themselves and forgive themselves, it can only inspire them with disgust and shame when it appears before them in other people. Man's actions are the best translators of his thoughts. If severity leads to a cure for a bad inclination, then this result is often achieved by planting another, even worse and more dangerous ailment, spiritual bruising. In a badly brought-up person, courage takes the form of rudeness, learning becomes pedantry in him, wit, buffoonery, simplicity, uncouthness, good nature, flattery. In no field does the mind need more careful guidance than in the use of books. Courage is the guardian and support of all other virtues, and one who is deprived of courage can hardly be firm in the performance of duty and show all the qualities of a truly worthy person. Parents, encouraging the whims of children and pampering them when they are small, spoil their natural inclinations, and then are surprised that the water, the source of which they themselves have poisoned, has a bitter taste. The vice is not in having desires, but in the inability to subordinate them to the rules of reason. The point is not whether you experience or do not experience the desires themselves, but in the ability to control them and refuse them. Justice does not allow punishment, no matter where it is carried out. For, entering society, a person is subject not to the laws of nature, but to human laws, the purpose of which is the prosperity of mankind as a whole. Things are good and evil only in relation to pleasure and pain. We call good that which is capable of causing or increasing our pleasure. We call evil that which is capable of causing us or increasing some kind of suffering. Covetousness, and the desire of having in our possession, and under our dominion, more than we have need of, being the root of all evil, should be early and carefully weeded out, and the contrary quality of a readiness to impart to others, implanted. This should be encouraged by great commendation and credit, and constantly taking care that he loses nothing by his liberality. Let him sensibly perceive, that the kindness he shews to others, is no ill husbandry for himself, but that it brings a return in kindness both from those that receive it, and those who look on. Make this a contest among children, who shall outdo one another in this way, and by this means, by a constant practice, children having made it easy to themselves to part with what they have, good nature may be settled in them into a habit, and they may take pleasure, and pique themselves in being kind, liberal and civil, to others. The law of faith, being a covenant of free grace, God alone can appoint what shall be necessarily believed by everyone whom he will justify. What is the faith which he will accept and account for righteousness, depends wholly on his good pleasure. For it is of grace, and not of right, that this faith is accepted. And therefore he alone can set the measures of it, and what he has so appointed and declared is alone necessary. No body can add to these fundamental articles of faith, nor make any other necessary, but what God himself hath made, and declared to be so. And what these are which God requires of those who will enter into, and receive the benefits of the new covenant, has already been shown. An explicit belief of these is absolutely required of all those to whom the gospel of Jesus Christ is preached, and salvation through his name proposed. Encourage therefore his inquisitiveness all you can, by satisfying his demands, and informing his judgment, as far as it is capable. When his reasons are any way tolerable, let him find the credit and commendation of it, without being laughed at for his mistake be gently put into the right, and if he shew a forwardness to be reasoning about things that come in his way, take care, as much as you can, that no body check this inclination in him, or mislead it by captious or fallacious ways of talking with him. For when all is done, this is the highest and most important faculty of our minds, deserves the greatest care and attention in cultivating it, the right improvement, and exercise of our reason being the highest perfection that a man can attain to in his life. Truly, if the preservation of all mankind, as much as in him lies, were every one's persuasion, as indeed it is every one's duty, and the true principle to regulate our religion, politics and morality by, the world would be much quieter, and better natured than it is. This I think is sufficiently evident, that children generally hate to be idle. All the care then is, that their busy humor should be constantly employed in something of use to them, which, if you will attain, you must make what you would have them do a recreation to them, and not a business. And because it may be too great a temptation to human frailty, apt to grasp at power, for the same persons, who have the power of making laws, to have also in their hands the power to execute them, whereby they may exempt themselves from obedience to the laws they make, and suit the law, both in its making, and execution, to their own private advantage.